This video is brought to you late by 4 different exams that I had in the span of 3 days. Thank you, University of Innsbruck. Sword Art Online Alicization War of Underworld Episode 9 brought us the goddess of creation, Stacia, as Asuna finally descends to the surface of Underworld, whereas Scheta the Silent and Iskahn find something precious to live for. Welcome everyone, it's me Gamerturk, proving that even your most reliable source of Sword Art Online information can be late due to real life responsibilities, with Alicization Explained featuring War of Underworld Episode 9, Sword and Fist. This is gonna be a budget explained because the aim is to cover episode 9 before episode 10 arrives tomorrow, but regardless, timestamps to individual plot points are in the description as well as the pinned comment for easy navigation. But to give you a quick rundown, again the adaptation quality was very high, despite some major drops here and there, let's say, which was not surprising considering the past. The anime never cared about the backstories of the Dark Territory members, and this week it was Iskhahn's time to be sacrificed, but maybe they can cover some of it in future episodes, maybe. Scheta's background also received some access here and there. Overall, good episode nevertheless, but if you're new to my explained series, what I do here is essentially provide you all the vital information on characters, events, action, lore from the source material, light novels, things that the anime did not convey properly or just did not have the time to, so you can still see the full picture. So make sure to subscribe and hit the bell icon to not miss any of the details in the upcoming weeks and gain an immunity shield against the pawns of Emperor Vecta swiftly spreading misinformation and uncontrolled spoilers like a pack of foxes. But then again, if you want to read the books for yourselves for the amazing experience, Amazon and Book Depository affiliate links are in the description, and the knowledge of Stacia awaits you there. Stacia herself awaits you there as well, as this is your final days to get Christmas merch. Sweatshirts and leggings featuring Padoru Kirito and Asuna, as well as Padoru Yuju and Alice, are available on my Teespring shop. Detailed summary though, episode 9 adapted the final page of chapter 18 part 4, as well as chapter 19 parts 1 and 2 from volume 16 Alicization Exploding. Part 3, which features Asuna's perspective of the final moments, will be adapted next week along with the continuation of the story, of course. Again, it's roughly 35 pages, but unlike last week, they had a trouble of bringing most things from the novels, although looking at the amount of focus they provided to Scheta vs Iskahn fight scenes and the extensive coverage of that general moment, it's kinda understandable why there had to be drops despite not much being adapted in terms of book pages. Anyways, the episode begins with Alice's announcement, and I'll start with clarifying your confusions. Priestess of Light title is a made-up term by Vecta. Alice is simply using the term he made up to announce herself as, so the Dark Territory army takes her seriously enough to divert enough forces towards her rather than the human empire. There is no real title of Priestess of Light. It doesn't mean anything, it was mainly Gabriel role-playing to impress his subjects and came up with that title to do that. Next up we have the new variant for the opening. I'm gonna talk about the specific new scenes and details at the end of the video with spoilers, so until I put up a spoiler warning there, all I'm gonna say is that the opening was changed, it had new scenes. But as we go back, Berkuli mentions that he believes Vixurul Shasta, the idealistic commander of the Dark Knights, is no longer alive. In the anime, this comes off quite abrupt, but in the novels, this feeling was teased when Alice had first arrived at the camp, which roughly coincides with the death of Shasta. Ever since their duel, Berkuli was very hopeful of Shasta, and being very capable with his incarnation, he was keeping how to put it properly without sounding awfully wrong. He had a sense of how Shasta's existence felt through his incarnation, and when Shasta had ceased to exist a couple days ago, Berkuli had felt it and had briefly mentioned it back at the camp in passing. Here, he's still looking for a sign of his existence to have some hope, for that peaceful future, but as he states himself, he can no longer feel any life from Shasta, whom he was hopeful of to eventually come to a peace. I like that they adapted the small bit where Berkuli is really fond of Renly and Alice mentioning that there is no rule stating that an Integrity Knight must go through the synthesis ritual. It's a good tease of possibilities regarding the future, and of course not even just the future, as that is spoilers as is, and I cannot talk about any of that to not spoil you, but also a statement proven by the past, as Fizel and Linel, for example, are officially Integrity Knights who have not gone through the synthesis ritual yet. But yeah, keep that in mind. But with that, we switch perspectives to the punchy boy Iskahn, and yeah, this episode is certainly a whole lot better in its animation than anything so far. Even that Korean outsourced episode, which was decently creative with its non-action episode 5, I love how Berkuli is using his hands when he is explaining the pugilist to Alice, like the rudimentary animation being a little bit flavored. This is the kind of stuff I mean. Last episode I mentioned this as well. But yeah, of course, the entire backstory of Iskahn and the pugilists has been skipped. To keep this short, I won't go in depth to their backstory since I will cover it next week anyways in an SAO Wikia video for Iskahn. So just stay tuned for that, but goddamn, Iskahn's animations are just so fluid and expressive throughout the entire episode that I just love it. But yeah, the gist of it is the training of a pugilist is completely reliant on incarnation, despite them not explicitly knowing it as such. Berkuli is aware of what it is, of course, being the wise person that he is, but for a pugilist, it's all about getting into a mental state where they believe they are completely unbreakable. And surprise surprise, the way main visualizer of Project Alicization works allows that belief to manifest in reality in short bursts temporarily. Now, that is very important. Remember, incarnation is a temporary condition. That's why pugilists have their combat dances to prepare themselves. Such things even have background in our real worlds as well. Not as effective as incarnation, of course, but for example, Ottomans used to have an entire band with them when going to war to play music with them to motivate their own troops as well as demoralize other enemies. I'm pretty certain some other civilizations have similar traditions as well. In the case of pugilists, as explained in another history video, this motivation is picked up by the main visualizer and is used to actually physically enhance them in the process. And the temporary factor is the reason why you see Iskahn going for another dance before he personally deals with Scheta, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Scheta's past is also mostly glossed over. How she became an Integrity Knight, surprise surprise, she won the 4 Empire Unification tournament with a major bloodbath. How Quinella sent her to the Dark Territory in search of an object left behind by the darkest times of the Dark Territory, the Age of Blood and Iron. How she inherited strong enough incarnation herself to cut down pugilists who thought they were uncuttable solely because, much like them, or even more so, she simply knew she could cut anything standing in her way, just like that time when she accidentally cut down another Integrity Knight in training and, fearing her own power, requested to be put to sleep by Quinella. All of that and more, however, you can listen to in our Meet Scheta the Silent introduction video by clicking the icon in the upper right corner. This is a budget explained episode, I cannot spend too much time, this has already taken longer than I wanted. Anyways, we got minor Renly scenes, minor Vasago scenes, and back to action focusing so greatly on Iskahn and Scheta that I am at a loss of words. One of the most wonderful animations so far in this series. But I'm also in love that Iskahn is at a loss for words towards Scheta as well. She's just so awkward because of her silence in general. Like, she looks around to think for a bit before uttering a couple of words. That's just great. Her calmness, Iskahn's rudeness is just perfect, don't you think? Wink wink. The animation depth during Iskahn's dance is incredible though. Look at those moves, those details, those flames, absolutely incredible. And this fight is just a major joy to watch, even when I had 4 exams to prepare for during the week. Anyways, I don't want to talk more on Scheta and Iskahn, you will get more of them soon enough before we go into the break in 3 episodes. But you can be damn sure I am gonna focus on those final 2 minutes with Vasago and Stacia. You see, there are a lot of details here, however, 2 are most important. First one, only a very little amount of people have caught on to, and they don't really know the reason behind it. I received multiple questions about why Vasago was surprised when Ronya mentioned what she learned from her senpai. There's also some misinformed assumptions going on, so let's clear those and the reason why Vasago is surprised, of course. For starters, he's not surprised because Ronya had caught on to him, or because she used the word senpai or anything. None of those were surprising for Vasago, but something subconsciously had bothered him about what he had just heard from this little girl. My senpai taught me not to rely on my eyes, but to sense everything. Do you remember that sentiment? Because Vasago sure does, after fighting against that very same sentiment for almost 2 years before being thrown into the Black Iron Palace along with other members of the Laughing Coffin. However, it has been such a long time that he was simply shocked at hearing something so familiar to him from such a defining period of his own lifetime, but was not able to pinpoint the cause, hence he was caught back for a second. He was really trying to remember where he heard that sentiment before. But before he could get the chance to actually remember where he heard it from, another variable entered the equation, making the link very clear. A goddess starts descending from the heavens in shining bright light, every movement of her hand causing a beam of light arcing on the sky, with angelic chorus sound effects filling the environment along with it, and creating a huge ravine to kill off the Dark Knights and plunge Wasago into his death as well. As he fell, the bright light toned down, the link in Wasago's mind became clear. That was Asuna the Flash, the vice commander of the Knights of Blood, Kirito's partner. That must have meant something, that he finally had an opportunity to... Well, not gonna tell you because that's spoilers. Anyways, I love this scene, but first off I need to get this out of my chest. I hated the chorus effects when I read the light novels, I hated the chorus effects in the anime as well. It feels too over the top and I don't like it. But moving on, this scene is the reason why I'm mad that Kirito's final moment in episode 24 was completely butchered. It was supposed to be exactly like this scene, just like Wasago slowly realizing things and making connections. Right before Kirito got struck by the power surge, he too was making links and coming to conclusions. It was literally the exact same process, but at the end of it, the punch in the gut was, instead of remembering Asuna like Wasago did here, Kirito was instead in the process of completely forgetting about Asuna. That was the entire emotional impact. It's very similar to the scene but the other way around, but why am I talking about episode 24? God damn it. Anyways, it's a nice addition to show Alice rushing to the scene from far away in panic as she watched otherworldly phenomena she doesn't understand, which should give you an idea on what to expect along with the episode 10 trailer of course, but she will have other reasons as well to do what she's going to do. You want more talk on Stacia? Well then, you either have to wait until next episode explained, where I'll extensively talk about it of course, or watch our Meet Stacia Goddess of Creation video. But for now, I'll move on to the new opening scenes real quick, which will feature spoilers of course, so if you're leaving now because you don't want to be spoiled, comment Radiant Light of the Goddess of Creation in the comments to let me know, subscribe for more etc, but we're gonna have a short spoiler talk now on the new opening scenes. First, and arguably the most important ever change in the entire opening is that they altered the layers slightly, so Agil is no longer hidden behind Leafa and Shinon. Woo! The white blur effect on Stacia has been removed entirely, so you can see Asuna in her full glory as she tries to make haste towards Kirito. They still haven't fixed the bit where they're showcasing the leaders of the Dark Territory and this abomination of a pork shows up instead of the cutie pie that's Lilpilin. But yeah, coming to the big changes as well as major spoilers. The crew first turn into their Alo avatars, but then you see 3 of them turning into new, different avatars. You've already met Stacia, the goddess of creation, but following her, you can see Shinon as Solus, the goddess of sun. Obviously not Lunaria, which is the goddess of the moon, because that would be stupid, that it can only be something a fox who has not read light novels would say. And you also see Leafa as Terraria, the goddess of earth. Now before you assume this is gonna seriously change the course of the war, you need to remember that abilities of super accounts are not limitless. Super accounts are tech demos in a sense. They use the will of their user to utilize their inherent abilities, but unlike Incarnation that pushes one's will onto the main visualizer to temporarily overwrite the world, super accounts get to process the entire data inside their Floodlight to permanently alter the world. And since they're actively processing world data in their minds, this puts great strain on them and puts them at a great health risk akin to, well, simply destroying their Floodlight under the weight of all that data. So no, they do not possess limitless power as some other people may try to hype you as. But then again, at this point, he doesn't have much to read in the wiki either, so he has zero knowledge of what he's talking about, so it's not all that surprising. I mean, he was pulling stuff out of his ass even when he was reading our summaries on the wiki. I can't imagine the things he's doing now. Anyways, let's have the fox breathe a bit and contemplate about his lacking ethics and due diligence that he ends up consistently spreading misinformation to the people who trust him. The battle scene is changed of course, featuring Renly fighting some giants, which does not have much significance. This is just to have some Renly time in the OP. It doesn't refer to a main event or anything. Giants and goblins both are pretty much done for, so to say. And then we see Iskahn and Scheta Synthesis 12 duking it out, and as I said, you will see more of them in the near future as well. You see Alice and Stacia fighting against Emperor Vecta, and I got two things to mention here. One, I'm expecting this sequence to receive a little bit more polish because even the close shots look very basic and undetailed. Secondly, this is pretty much a bait scene. This is not a scene from the series, and you will get to learn really soon why this will never be. No, it's not because Asuna and Alice don't get along well. You'll see once it happens in the next couple of episodes, definitely before the break. So yeah, this is just a fake hype scene. Funnily enough, Berkuli vs Shasta ended up being a fake hype scene as well, because the anime decided to skip the entire backstory sequence back then. Just don't trust this scene. I see some very hyped people that Kirito is holding both swords in the dark territory this time around. Just stop. He is not waking up in this core. This is just Alice imagining Kirito in his not dead state. It's literally the same visual as the previous opening, they just changed the background layer here. This is nothing for you to reach false conclusions through. You want false conclusions? Foxen is graciously giving his false conclusions away for free. Go get some from him if you're looking for misinformation. Sadly, I am not a hype beast who likes to bend the truth and lie, so I gotta give it to you as it is. Final 2 episodes of this core is Volume 17, Alicization Awakening content, and there is as much awakening happening in Volume 17 as there was uniting happening in Volume 14, Uniting. So please don't get overhyped just to lash back at the anime afterwards because you had false expectations fueled by foxes. Also, goddammit, stop asking me about the goddamn puddle people. It's post-Alicization spoilers, and I don't think it's reasonable for me to give you post-Alicization spoilers while we are still midway War of Underworld at this point. Anyways, that's it, and if you made it this far, unlike the non-spoiler people, comment time for the pissing contest to let me know. We've already translated the episode 10 PV, so no teasers for the episode in this explained, it's coming out tomorrow anyways. No Q&A this week, obviously, so save your questions for episode 10 explained please. I am goddamn tired due to my exams, and I want to have a rest this weekend. Jokes on me, it won't happen because the weekends are when I work on SAO anime stuff anyways, so I'm just rambling at this point. Subscribe and hit the bell icon for all of that and more. Links to light novels, manga and more are in the description. Channel merch is there as well with a special discount code for patrons and channel members too, and the limited time Christmas merch with Padoru, Asuna and Kirito, as well as Padoru, Yuju and Alice are available. As always, thank you very much for watching. Huge thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members, and until next time, stay cool.